commission that got changed. Good catch, Larry.
Thank you. Perfect. So moving to our agenda today, we were going to start with a review and discussion of the Climate Forward memo. There was a memo that was circulated and is posted with the meeting materials for this evening. It is basically a short responses to questions that commissioners had submitted to OSC, to Christine or Emily, before I think it was probably before the July meeting. City jotted down a couple of responses, but it was really supposed to be the basis for further discussion if you had follow-ups. Does anyone need a minute to read that memo? Or need a fresh read?
Yes, that would be helpful.
No worries. I'm gonna keep sharing my screen. If you're looking on it through that, just tell me when you're ready for me to scroll.
Julia, was Emily planning to attend as well?
Unfortunately, Emily was unable to make it tonight.
Okay. So I think she was the one who was most keen to have follow-up conversations based on this memo. So it could be that we defer further discussion until we're able to connect with her. But please, let's take a minute to read.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say later. I followed up with Emily by email with some questions, and so my guess is that she has answers, but they might not be here today.
Sorry, to be clear, Eliza, you had questions about the memo, or you had questions that fed into the memo?
I had questions that fed into the memo.
Got it. Okay.
Sorry, I didn't say that very clearly either.
I was a little bit confused about this agenda item when I saw it. And Julia, I'm sorry, that's why I emailed you twice. I did not realize this was a new document getting put together. So I think when that July meeting, I wasn't here, or maybe the June, I wasn't here leading into this. Were these just general questions that people came up to? Were the questions in response to something, in response to review of the plan, in response to that webinar, or like, was there a prompt that led to these specific questions? I'm just sort of curious about the
prompt was basically like, what would you do you have any questions about how the plan rolled out and what the next steps are, or where we are?
Okay. And they were, this was back in July.
Yeah, it might have been June actually, but
okay. And then these are the written up responses. Okay.
So we went through it, collected the questions from the past few meetings, and then Emily wrote up these responses for
the
questions that the commission came up with as a whole.
All right, I apologize then. I when I saw them, I thought the memo was dating back to the June or July meeting. That's why I was like,
got it.
Oh yeah, tell me where I find this memo. Okay.
I understand. No worries.
Thank you for the background.
Are we good? Should I continue scrolling? I see someone nodding their head, so I'm just gonna keep doing that.
Great.
I'm all set.
I have also placed a link to the memo in the chat for, I believe, for everyone. Yes, for everyone.
Thank you.
Ed, I see your hand up. We'll come to you just in a second. And questions 9 to 12 are fairly short.
I'm taking that as permission to scroll to section 9 and to 12.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And if there are any questions that anybody has after this memo that they would like to relay back to Emily, like I mentioned, unfortunately, she was unable to be here tonight. She had prior personal engagements, but please feel free to either myself or Emily, and we can work on getting answers and either emailing those back or having her at the next commission meeting to be able to discuss this with you guys further.
So I'll just jump in and say that question 10, advocacy needed for city departments, is similar to a question that I had asked. And so I'll take a stab at clarifying, although I don't think it was my question. So if you wrote it, feel free to jump in. But this was just about how a lot of the plan's elements seem to require, or at least could heavily benefit, I'll say, interaction between facilities, procurement, sort of other departments of the city that I'll just say politely historically have not always collaborated effectively. And one of the things that would be really great would be to use this plan as an opportunity to create connections around something that I think everyone believes is a good idea and, you know, could have a positive outcome. And so I think the commission, you know, in our advocacy role, but also in our, you know, citizen of Somerville role, could perhaps help lean on some of the city departments or at least elected officials to make that happen. So I think the question there, at least the way that I would frame it, is there any support that you need from the commission to pull city departments together to collaborate effectively on elements of the plan? And again, you don't have to answer the question now. I'm just clarifying what the question was. And as I said, I think that was very similar to a question that I asked directly of Emily. So my guess is she may have also already thought about that and have an answer.
No, that's a really good question. And I wish that I could give a robust answer to that, but I don't live in Emily's brain. What I can say, and I don't want to speak for Emily, but what I can say for her, or assume anyway, is that I know we've been doing as a department a lot of, we were calling it the summer of SOS, summer of strategy, really looking at climate forward and figuring out how to, coordinate and strategize with other city departments as well. I'm not sure exactly where Emily landed on that, but I know there has been progress in that area. So I'm sure she does have a more robust answer for you, and I'll reach out to her and try to get that over to you later.
Great.
I mean, the task forces are a pretty big step in that direction as well. Is that right, Julia? And,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and we can have her expand on that. Go ahead, Courtney.
Can I suggest then without Emily here that maybe we wait on further deliberation so that we can have a more informative conversation?
Agreed. I will
agree with that.
take that as an informal motion to defer further discussion on this until we're able to connect with Emily in a meeting, which I think makes sense. Ed, I see you've lowered your hand, so I'm guessing your hand was raised to see if you could get a link to the memo. And if that's not the case, go ahead and raise your hand again. But otherwise, let's defer to the next meeting or to future meeting when we're able to connect with Emily. I do know that Emily is keen to follow up with us as well as with everyone who provided input into the plan and in developing the plan. So I think she has a genuine interest in hearing what our questions are and following up on them. So we'll get her.
Absolutely. And then I do see Ed's hand is raised again. So
Okay.
I'm going to just bear with me for one moment, and I am going to give you permission to speak. All right, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I just wanted to have my own copy of that plan to see. So thank you for putting that in the chat.
Of course.
And also, given a set of emails I had today with involving people who are at the utilities that are developing the 3-year mass save plan, they're looking to have a group of us who's on a mass save coalition reform committee meet with them to specify the type of information we think that mass save ought to be collecting on their audits. And that ties in terrifically with the effort to collect information on rental units. And I wonder if you have a list of the information that you would like to collect from rental units. You can send that to me, and I can use that as a tool to expand mass save's collection of information on dwellings that they actually do audits on or visit. That would be very helpful.
Ed, that's fantastic. And thank you so much for sharing that. That's really great. So our program manager who's really doing the implementation of that is our residential energy manager, Garrett Anderson. And a lot of the exact things that we were looking for in specifics will be coming through community feedback that we're in the process of getting right now through focus groups, etc. So right now we are accepting registrations for people to participate in the focus groups, which would be extremely helpful. I don't know exactly what those I don't know exactly what information we're going to be asking for the registry itself, as I don't think that's been determined yet, and it will come from that community outreach. But I would love to connect you with our energy manager, as I think you have a lot of really great insight to give him, and it would be a really great collaboration as we're developing the policy.
That's terrific. Thank you. And you can sign me off right now until I raise my hand again.
Actually, Ed, just a quick follow-up. Do you know the timeline for when you would like some information to share?
We're going to have a stakeholder meeting sometime mid-October.
Okay.
And also I have with a group that are working on mass save collected a list of information that we think is important to doing proper energy analysis on that. And there's a 3-year plan that has been published by mass save that we're looking at and have gone over line by line and trying to develop an approach that not only gets the information, but engages people to go ahead and consider upgrading or changing their energy profile of their house in their dwelling. So
super. Yeah, that's helpful. I'm not sure that we'll have a definitive list by mid-October, but it's possible that Garrett might be able to share just sort of the broad thinking right now without being specific just yet. So yeah, thanks, Julia, for putting
that'd be terrific. Thank you.
Of course, thank you very much. I'm gonna remove your permissions now. Feel free to raise your hand again.
All right, moving on our, assuming there's no other questions from attendees, please raise your hand if you do have others. Moving on to the technically the buildings subcommittee. And we were going to have a couple of, I guess we wanted to maintain a standing agenda item to talk about school decarbonization. If there is any update to provide.
Well, we do have an HR update in that regard.
Right. Outside of the HR update, is there anything around the school decarb that anyone wants to raise? And then we can touch on the HR piece. Go ahead, Courtney.
Alexis and I, or Commissioner Washburn and I had been in contact with some folks at OSE and IAM about connecting with Mass Save that now in even in advance of the new 3-year plan, have technical services for, I don't know if it's related to the HR thing, but have technical services available for phase-in plans for existing buildings for decarbonization and could help with the bigger Winter Hill and around. And there hasn't been any movement on that as far as I can see. I'm just curious, Julia, if we know an update, or if we can get one before the next meeting. It's been a little while, a couple of attempts.
I didn't
I didn't quite hear. what
fully
you were-
hear all of
Is
that,
my
but
audio still bad?
it's
It's a little-
low, yeah.
Is that any different? At all? Same. Okay. So I'll try to speak maybe louder so that I project better. Okay. Commissioner Washburn and I have been trying to get some movement for OSE and IAM to connect with new Mass Save technical assistance for municipalities to get help with both phased-in plans for decarbonizing and electrifying existing school buildings. And they also can help technical assistance and funding for the new big buildings like what will happen at Winter Hill and possibly West Brown. And there hasn't been any movement on that or feedback. It's a really a good opportunity that the city should take advantage of to help with kind of something that's the biggest part of the climate forward goals and plan for both buildings and schools and leadership. So just wanting, Julie, I know you're the only one from OSB here and not necessarily part of that, but it would be helpful to hear something in short order, not waiting another month. Maybe you could help.
So the question is, has the city been able to connect with Mass Save about technical assistance for decarboning?
We put them in direct touch with the people that at Mass Save who can do that, but there's been no response on the solution. You're on mute.
Thank you. I am not really, I'm unaware of that conversation. I'm happy to follow up with our team to figure out where that landed, and I can send you an email tomorrow, Courtney, to
Great.
figure that out. Here, let me start this down. Bear with me. Yeah, I can absolutely follow up on that for you. I'm sorry that I don't have more answers.
No, yeah, I understand.
Go ahead, Alexis.
I was also going to add that the Mass Save piece, so in addition to the school decarbonization work that they're doing, they're also going to be working with K through 12 schools, particularly like on the education side of things. And so there's going to be new staff training and teacher curriculum that can be used in the classroom as well. And so I think it would be helpful for OSC to connect with the right folks at the schools so we can take advantage of that, or at least sort of help guide the development of it. So it's actually useful.
Awesome.
Sorry, I was writing that down. No, that's a great point. I again will connect with them. Courtney, do you know who you emailed in OSC? Off the top of your head?
It was Eric Lawson and
Okay.
is he the HR update? Or,
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
okay.
That's a good segue into the HR update. That does not surprise me, as Eric has been given an amazing opportunity, and he will be leaving OSC after several years of working with us. He accepted a position with the MIT Labs. So he'll be doing some really cool stuff over there. I'm not exactly sure. He does have to get security clearance, so I'm not sure if he's actually allowed to tell anybody what exactly he'll be doing. But yeah, he's been really great in the city, and he's done some amazing work, especially on the school decarb end. So that does not surprise me that he was unable to maybe does not respond, or what happened there. I'll reach out to him and try to get you an answer, but he's been working on his transition plan and wrapping up a lot of loose ends before his last week, which I believe is the last week of September.
Okay. Christine's on the email as well, so she'd be
Okay.
familiar with it.
Fantastic.
we wish Eric the best. He was awesome. Yeah, and here we go. To hire again. I don't know if the hiring market is improving at all, but it's been tough. Anything else on the building side?
We do
I see
have,
Ed has his hand raised.
I'm going to allow you to talk again, Ed.
Thank you. I just pulled out of my files a draft of a bill fashioned after three bills, one by Senator Cream and Sabadosa, Jeff Roy, and Mike Barrett. And in that summary of an outline of a bill, there's a whole list of information that we thought at that time would be very useful to collect for residential buildings, some detail. So I'll just send that. Shall I send that to OSE?
I'm going to throw my email into the chat, Ed, and you can feel free to send that to me. Thank you so
Great.
much.
Terrific. Thanks.
Perfect. Moving on to administration and the all exciting discussion about the ordinance. For which we have some movement here.
Would you like me to share my screen with the red lines version, Larry? Would that be the easiest way to do this?
I will put that to other commissioners. Would you like to review the clean version or the red line version on screen, or would you like to just look at it offline?
Larry, I just had one. Maybe we could just do like a quick round robin and see if people had any questions in particular. Or is that not where you want this to go?
I'm assuming that's on the assumption that folks have been able to review
Okay.
What was posted. So
Got it.
I don't want to assume that just yet.
Totally fine.
If Courtney, Julie, Alexis, if you guys have reviewed it already, then raise your hand.
Larry, oh, sorry, go ahead, Courtney.
No, you go ahead.
Oh, the clean one, it says original. Is that,
Wait, I'm confused. There are
It's-
two clean ones. I don't know which is.
The clean one says original in the file name. It is not the original. It is the clean version of
with
our.
changes?
Yeah, that's a very good point. That's my mistake in my saving title names. I apologize for the confusion. It is not the original. I will work with our media team to update the name of the document for future reference.
Maybe you can share
Alright,
the
I got
clean one that we
confused
should be
about
looking at, because I'm looking at two things I opened
Yeah,
from
here
the
I'll
link that are clean and different.
That's
One
where
that
the-
has, one that has like, there'll be at least one person from Ward 4 and one person from Ward 5, and another that doesn't have that. There'll be 15 voting members.
Yes, so there were two different versions that were sent out at various points of the commission. There was the one that references the two people from Ward 2, XYZ. Those are all specifics that will be included in the bylaws, not the ordinance at this point. And so the version without that in it is the correct version. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, yep. Okay, thank you. All right, so that's the clean version that has all the latest changes.
Correct.
Okay, great.
So we've kicked the can down the road on some of our more granular, detailed questions about, should there be one youth or two youth or
Yeah.
all that. So we will be raising that again, but for purposes of this ordinance, simplified.
I fully support that. You had at one point, I think, or I don't know if you had some questions for the legal department or if it was just a review from the legal department. Is that
Yeah, I think what we've decided to do is try to get this as far down the road as we
Okay.
could, and then go back to them rather than vice versa.
Yeah.
So there are some
Yeah.
things around wording here that we will get legal guidance on, to make sure that we're we're consistent. Things like, you know, shall be composed of up to 15 voting members. And I think there was some feedback in an earlier version of like, you know, does that mean like we don't function if there aren't 15, or how do we exactly word this? And we'll get that right, but with their input.
Yes, Courtney?
If you could go down a little bit to right there for C. I asked about this last time where it says, not that statement, it's C. Right there, stop.
Yep.
The bottom of the page. Each appointed member shall serve for a 2-year term, it will be staggered. I don't think it's clear anywhere there or elsewhere about, is it only 2 years and then you have to go, or can it go on? Continue, like, you know, it's been on for a long time, and it's been fantastic for, you know, old institutional knowledge and
So we do not, we did not have term limits in this, so folks are free to be renominated for additional terms if that's.
So I think that you may want to clarify that.
That also, I believe, ties into the new reappointment schedule. Sorry, I changed my tab accidentally. The new reappointment schedule that was coming, that the mayor's office is going around and doing for all of the different commissions. So we do have an update on that for later as well. But that's
but once it's set and you're on, I think there somewhere it should say like no term limits pending reapproval or renomination. I mentioned, as I said last night, I was on the original Community Preservation Act committee, and it was not clear that when we were all brought on for 2, 3, or 5-year terms that it was one of those. Like to stagger it, they brought us on for different periods of time, and then once you hit your limit, whatever it was, you had to move on.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so we can insert a line that basically makes clear that that folks could be renominated. They don't have to be, but they could be. Yeah.
am I good to keep on scrolling, everyone, or do you want me to stay here for a little bit?
Keep scrolling.
Beautiful.
I have a question, Larry. Are there sort of thinking about the clean version versus the red line version, are there specific areas that we should be focusing on for this conversation? And then a second question is, if we have comments on like the language specifically that like particularly around like wording and things like that, is now a time to discuss that, or should we provide that feedback offline?
Yes, so in reverse order to your second question, if it's wording that that would substantively change the intent of the document, then I think it's worth bringing up now. If it's wording to help clarify or questions about wording to help clarify, then I think offline might be more efficient. Your first question was any particular areas to focus on. I actually didn't have particular areas to focus on. I did have a question on intent from Christine and Julia about the second ex officio member, and because I think it's not clear here who that is, but other than that, I didn't have any. I have lots of questions about that detailed stuff that we kicked down to the bylaws.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll add a comment towards the beginning before we get too far down. But it's mainly around the wording. I think in the first section where we're saying that we address both climate and ecological crises. My suggestion would be to change ecological to environmental, just because this is semantics maybe, but ecology is like a subfield of environmental. And so I think it's just more broad and all-encompassing.
Sounds like a good idea to me.
Thank you for that. And also this, I want to acknowledge that Director Blaze is now on the call. Welcome, Christine.
Sorry, my bad. Thank you.
Okay.
Awesome. All right, so I'm going to scroll back down to where we were. This is where
I did have a question, and maybe Larry, you're saying we kicked this entirely down to the bylaws, but the other ex officio member, I thought I had read or I had I thought it was implied that that would be from the schools. Is that codified in the other context, or is that more that it's like we're leaving it open for discussion?
The intention is that another ex officio would be somebody from the schools. I think what was still TBD was if we were going to add additional ex officios
I see.
beyond those two.
Got it. And
Okay.
Christine, I don't think you were on the call when we had a conversation about the Climate Forward memo, but I do think that if we can use this ex officio spot or spots to sort of force some collaboration between different city and school departments that have a lot of overlap or sort of implications on climate stuff, that would be a great way to get them bought in and engaged. So I like the idea of leaving some flexibility to, depending on sort of in a given year or years, where our focus is, like where are our new buildings, what city departments are maybe sort of actively engaging on whatever the main agenda items are. I think that would really help break down some of the silos that have been challenges in the past.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the sentiment, and I think where that's coming from. I think that Somerville is a little bit of a different case than most communities, whereas institutionally there's a lot of overlap with what we're doing, and we talk every single day with every department that's doing this. And I'm working internally with a couple different irons in the fire to even increase that even more. So I think I think a big concern that anybody would have is that this would be, outside of normal work hours, and it wouldn't exactly be clear what an ex officio would do in the meetings from another department, because but as of right now, what we do is communicate out, like from this commission, and we carry that message forward to the other departments, and that seems to be working really well.
Right.
And I worry that with limited resources and limited capacity, and everybody basically working as if we're in a crisis all the time, because we are, but it's already really hard to work past the next 24 hours and kind of envision that. So I just worry that this might not be the best way to do that. But I think it's worth, and for what it's worth, I have voiced this with people, and we've kind of talked about what that might look like. And I think that that's kind of the impression that I have gotten from folks, is that, well, if you're going to do this, like, what's the result that we really want out of this? So I think if we could maybe talk through that, then I think that might be helpful in kind of steering what happens with those ex officio positions.
Alexis?
Well, yeah.
Maybe Christine, you can clarify this. What is the difference between a non-voting ex officio member and then us just inviting someone from city staff to join a meeting?
Yeah. So the difference would be that an ex officio would be like required to be here. They would be a member of the commission, pursuant to their role within the city. So, like, for example, if we wrote in the bylaws, like the director or their designee of infrastructure and asset management would be ex officio to the commission, that position would have an obligation to the commission and be required to attend. and participate. However, we, draft those responsibilities and here and in the bylaws. So, and then versus if they are asked to attend a meeting, which I think is kind of what I would be more inclined to do. And from what we've seen in the past, even as recently as like May, I think when we had Director Raish here, we can ask, say, hey, we're going to be discussing this topic at this meeting. Would you be able to come, and either present or listen and then respond, depending on what or, if somebody was working on a particular project and we wanted to hear about it, maybe they would present on it. I've done that at least in my former capacities at the city when I was in the housing division. So that's sort of the difference there, is like the obligation piece.
Okay. Turning back to, I don't know, section 2306, we're moving down to section 2307.
Oh, sorry, and just a comment on 306. I think we were wait, am I in the wrong? I'm sorry, it's actually in 305. Sorry, going way back, right at the top of right there, the one on diversity representation. I think we had mentioned age in there as well. I don't know if that, I mean, I don't know. We had mentioned the youth member. I don't know if we want to somehow acknowledge that in that one. Because I guess I was also, and I know this is a further down section, but I was also sort of wondering if, I don't know, if we feel like we need bylaws. I mean, I see the text that's been deleted. Yeah, definitely is more detail, but I don't know. I guess I would just throw that question out. And Larry, you've been way in it with this document, so maybe you have a better sense.
Yeah, I think bylaws are helpful, and I think helpful as governing docs, and I think that becomes even more important with a larger commission, just
Good
in
point,
setting out processes more formally, including, election of chair and renomination processes and things like that. So it's probably important to yes, have bylaws, particularly for a larger board. I know we operate somewhat informally, but that might have to
Yeah,
shift.
that's a really good point. That's a really good point.
All right, I've scrolled back down to section 2307.
We would have 180 days to write our bylaws.
It is only 6 meetings. I guess that was also maybe striking me. Yes. Like, considering how long this has taken. I don't know.
Is everybody comfortable with me continuing to scroll, or do you want me to hang on here for a minute? I
I
see
think
head nodding. Oh.
Yeah, and I would just add that bylaws we can change with like a simple vote amongst
right.
commission members. It doesn't go before the council or the mayor.
Right. Sorry, I should have
Right.
said that.
Yeah.
Right. So we can change things in the bylaws, whereas it takes much more effort to change things in the ordinance.
Yeah, no, I definitely support the taking the detail out of here. I think it was, I mean, I think you made a lot of good points. I'm on board with it. I think this, this experience, having the ordinance go a really long time without us looking at it, that was like just kind of an eye opener for, it's citizen commissions with a lot of topics that they're dealing with, like this kind of stuff does fall to the bottom of the barrel. And so that was sort of the only, like, it is another administrative responsibility that we
Yeah.
then have to keep up on. But yeah, I like I think you made a lot of good points.
Alexis.
This is in response to section 307. We specify climate tech workforce development, but I think I would just make it broad workforce development, recognizing the importance of vocational and technical training as well.
Excellent point. Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Yes, I also have another question about 307. It's a pretty long list, but is it fully exhaustive, we think? Because like we're quite specific in some areas, and so I wonder being more like using more general categories would be better. Considering that updating the ordinance is challenging. And yes, we don't want it to be out of date with future developments and things like that.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's an interesting question. It is. Some of them are quite detailed, and others are pretty broad. So I guess part of the question is, can we like, would it be possible to contemplate all the very specific categories, or should we end with you know, and other issues that are critical for blah blah blah, something along those lines, just to leave the door open.
And other relevant topics. I mean, I guess to me, the sort of the use of the language shall have interest in as opposed to expertise leaves it pretty vague already. I have an interest in buildings, right? I mean, I guess we've already chosen to leave that word very open-ended. So I
Yeah,
feel like we gave ourselves a catch-all.
yeah, that's fair.
But I don't feel strongly, so I'm happy to.
Is it maybe possible to align it with the sort of like different categories we had in Climate Forward? Like, would that cover everything? And then like there's like this sort of connection to this other document that is very relevant to the commission.
We should double check to make sure that we have addressed all the 73, 75,
77.
77.
You're so close.
At least touch on the categories of those. So yes, let's put some work in to double check that.
Yeah, I think so. For what it's worth, I'm on the same page with you. But I think that there's like at least two areas I can think of that are sort of left out, which are well, three, I guess, the municipal operations. I mean, like leadership doesn't quite encompass, I think, what we're talking about here, but leadership, I think, is encompassing of like policy and like regulatory efforts and municipal operations. And then we have the education piece with the schools, and then the workforce development. So those might not be like inherent in those five categories, the way that they are, or like finance, but like they are here. But we can definitely like, I think it's worth making sure that this is sufficiently broad so that we don't find ourselves in the same kind of pitfalls that we found ourselves in this time.
Got it. I see a suggestion as well to tweak the language to say housing and development, which is noted.
Got it. Thank you.
I will move us on at the top of the hour, if not sooner. So get your comments in now.
The quorum was my only other part. Oh, maybe I'm jumping ahead. Sorry, that's below what's on the screen.
Please go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I guess the quorum, down to a third plus one, is that common? Is that, I know there was discussion about the quorum being too small with 15 people. 6 out of 15, that sounds good, but we will have vacancies. So potentially I don't know, I'm just wondering where that came from, and did that alleviate any concerns about that being too small?
Yeah, where it came from was so there's one thought that that we may end up defining our commission in such ways that I don't know how I put it. We include people who actually may find it difficult to meet concurrently with us at the same time. And yet we still want their input and we still want their participation, and we think it's valuable to have them, and we will engage them in different ways. But in a meeting where we need a quorum in order to meet, they may not be able to participate.
Okay, yeah.
Think like a small business owner who's of a retail that's open at 7 o'clock or something like that, that wouldn't be able to participate, or or potentially youth at different hours, depending on. So that's one reason why we were like, maybe 50%, or majority, or 50% plus one is most common. And so we trimmed that back. Now is 1/3 plus one. It's a little bit arbitrary, perhaps. I don't know. We're thinking about. Alexis, what are your thoughts?
I found it confusing giving the language earlier where it says the commission shall be composed of up to 15 voting members. And so if we have 12 members, like, I guess it was confusing to me. I couldn't really interpret what quorum would actually be. Because like there could be a point where we say we're 12 members, we feel like we have good representation, we're not going to add any other members. So is quorum, considered of the 15 number or of the 12 number? I just thought it was really confusing.
Got it. So it should be of the 12, so of sitting members. So we should clarify that. So it would be, if we had 12 members, it would be 4 plus 1, so 5 would be quorum.
And then I guess there's a follow-up question to that, and maybe that's something that gets clarified in the bylaws, but what's our decision-making process for not adding additional members? Like, for example, if we don't add up to 15 members.
Yeah, I had a
yeah.
similar question about that when you get into the, at least one member of this ward, at least one member of this sort of category. I think, getting those check boxes and the right numbers is going to be, a little bit of a balancing act.
Yeah. Good question. I guess I had entered this thinking we would always strive to be fully staffed, if you will, and wouldn't make decisions to like say, 12 is enough. But I'm open to on that particular front, open to different thoughts, and also should be clarified one way or the other. Any thoughts on that before I turn to Ed?
Yeah, I guess you could envision it. I mean, if with 15, we don't have a lot of experience of how easy it's gonna be to keep that many people appointed, I guess. So we don't want to be spending all of the commission's time on new appointments. So I guess you could imagine a scenario where we find that unsustainable and take a break from appointments or something like that. That would be, I guess, my main
Yeah, that's
Um,
a fair point, or do it in a cohort, right? So like,
Yeah.
you know, appoint
Right,
people
right,
once a
space
year.
them out. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're gonna do this twice a year. The quorum seems a little low, I'll be honest with you. I mean, I don't think we do a lot of decision making, but obviously it does leave the door open for some minority, minority I don't think we're not really this type of commission, but it is opening a door for, some minority
Okay.
decision making that isn't the will of the commission. So
Okay.
I'm not sure. Yeah. And I'm so sorry. I actually have to leave early. I should have mentioned this at the beginning. But I'll actually jump off now. Sorry.
Right. Sorry. Alexis, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to echo something that Commissioner Wood said. I don't necessarily have an answer to this, but if we are continually striving to have 15 members or whatever the maximum we've set is, sort of like that puts on, I think, additional administrative burden on the chair, and then also OSE to obviously like do the interviews and things like that. And so, question of, is it once per year, twice per year? That we want to open it or advertise and recruit. So whatever that looks like. And then separately, a question about quorum. Could we have two different quorums, particularly like, the quorum that's proposed right now for meeting, but if we were voting on something, the quorum would be higher, for example. I don't know if that actually makes sense in practice or if that's allowable, but we don't often vote aside from like voting on minutes on a regular basis. And of course, there are other additional votes, but that might help mitigate some of like the sort of overly vocal voice of a smaller contingency.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll look into that. Are we able to unmute Ed? And Ed, you may get the last word here.
Yeah,
Ed, you should be able to unmute.
I got it. Thank you.
No
Yes.
worries.
About a quorum, I think of how many people do you want to have available to vote a decision of the commission? And if you have 12 in the commission, do you want a decision of the commission be less than a majority? And that when you have a quorum that's only 1/3, normally on the Robert's Rules of Order, a majority of a quorum determines what the decision will be.
Right.
I think politically that you wouldn't want a minority of the commission to pass a decision that is binding on everyone else. So just my thoughts on the number, sort of reflecting what Commissioner Washburn mentioned of convening a meeting quorum and a voting quorum. So you might raise a higher threshold for voting, something like that. But you have that dilemma of Robert,
Right.
that you have to take an exception from.
Super helpful. Thanks, Ed. And we have another attorney. So John, perhaps we can unmute.
Thank you. I just have a couple of, I don't know, questions, maybe more than anything. On my copy, which I think is consistent with what we're seeing on the screen, under 2.305, it seems like 2.306 is duplicated. All of those sort of B, A, B, and C are listed, and they're also listed under 2.306. That would just seem to be, it should be cleaned up.
Yeah.
And that does, under, it's called D, it's part of really C, does talk about the school, the Somerville schools. And that should probably go back. I didn't know if that was a voting or non-voting. I guess it's ex officio should go under 2.306. Maybe another section for the school if you want something specific about the school there. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a little bit of an artifact of us trying to clean that up. So
Yeah.
I think we clarified the intent, and we will lock that language down.
Yeah, the only other thing I would comment on is let's see, it's 2.305E. I think the intent is very admirable for the listing of all those groups, but the way it's drafted, you may get some members of the community just, well, you didn't get a person that covers this aspect. And I think I don't know, I'm not proposing any language, but somehow or another you shall, well, strive, I guess, is one of the words, but to use multiple, of those lists, you're not going to cover them all for you only have, there are 6 different groups there, and then you have different neighborhoods and so on. You're only having 15 members at most. Somehow or another, it's got to be clear that you want to do the best you can to put people from those many different groups on the commission, but you can't be expected to itemize a person like you're the person that covers this issue or something like that. It's just, I think it just needs to be a little more flexible, but it needs to also be stated in a way that you're going to make every effort to do it. Does that make any sense what I'm saying? I hope.
Yeah, it really does. That's super helpful.
And by the way, under 2.307, hey, environmental lawyers are, why not law? Environmental law. Frankly, I think you got enough under that section A. You said something about housing development. Well, you got development there. So you got that. I think you have enough there, frankly, personally. Anyway, that's all.
I was just about to add environmental law. It's a great idea, but no, yeah, thank you.
Well,
That's very helpful.
Yeah, but I do have an interest in a lot of those other, if
Yeah.
I were ever to apply.
Yeah, fair enough.
Thank you for that. I'm going to remove your permission to talk now.
All right. This is super helpful. I think we can refine this and take a version to legal based on that and then come back.
Thank you all so much.
Yeah, really helpful. So there's another, I think, important discussion in administration, actually a couple, but one is around, so we started to have the subcommittee discussion last month. We talked a little bit in circles, but I heard one sense that the existing structure works for where we are right now, and I was envisioning new subcommittees when we get to an expanded state, but it probably doesn't make sense to do that just yet. So I think that's actually down the road a little bit for our expansion, and then and thus adding new subcommittees. So wanted to make sure that the 8 of us were sort of organized around the existing subcommittees, and we're able to move those forward, because I think that's pretty important. At some point, I don't think we should wait too much longer to do that. So where was I going with that? So I guess we have these, we have 4 committees right now, policy, outreach, governance, buildings. There's a 5th, right? Administration. Oh yeah, governance is administration, right? So we sort of renamed administration to governance, so it didn't sound so administrative. And I guess kind of hoping to kind of staff these, and in particular staff the policy, outreach, and governance committees for the next, until we get to such point as we can expand. Not to say that buildings isn't important. We're going to keep it as a standing subcommittee and keep it as a standing item on our agendas, but really want to make sure that the others are fully staffed as well. So I don't know where we're down to 4 of us. And just wondering if we should just raise a hand for committees you'd like to sort of chip in on for the next 6 months or so until we can, you know, bulk up or however else we might want to do it. Go for it.
Are any of the subcommittees like completely vacant or have no commissioners on them?
I mean, I think that's kind of what Larry's saying, is that like we took a hiatus and then they kind of disbanded. So I think
Yeah.
it would be really helpful if we could at least staff the 3 that Larry mentioned.
Yeah, that and the hiatus was partly driven because we were down like 2 members, and so we couldn't meet as subcommittees because our quorum would violate our quorum. So that's how we ended up going on a little bit on hiatus.
Okay, so we're basically starting from scratch then, correct? Okay.
I think we could look at it that way, yeah.
Yes, so happy to continue this conversation. I would also make a suggestion that we should cover subcommittees in the bylaws and perhaps make it a requirement that commissioners participate on at least one, just so that we have full staffing on each of them.
Yep. Excellent. Eliza.
I was just gonna say, I don't want to punt everything to next meeting, but I feel like with so many commissioners not here, it might be a more productive conversation to wait and have the divvying up of who's on what subcommittee when there's more of us here.
I was going to say that you have an opportunity to get your pick now. So.
Like we do have quorum. We have 5 here. There's only 8 of us,
Yeah.
and I'm one of them. So
Yeah.
Okay, it's fine.
Courtney?
I believe that previously, Alexis, Yuri, and I have said we would be on a building committee, subcommittee.
Perfect. Okay. Eliza, you had earlier volunteered to help with the ordinance. Does that mean you'd like to help with governance or no?
Nope. I mean, again, part of the reason why I was suggesting we see like what does Ramon want to do? What does Erie want? Like if other people have strong opinions about what they want to do, I'm happy to also sort of take that into consideration. I guess I don't care. Like put me on whatever.
Alexis?
I was going to say, since we are missing some commissioners, is it possible for OSC to do direct outreach over email about what committee they would like to join so that we can kind of have decisions or proposals by the next meeting versus continuing to discuss it?
Yeah. I definitely would like to not discuss it next time, but at least to come with a proposed structure, and maybe that structure is just be putting people on there, or we could be, you know.
I'm not gonna like force anybody to join these. So I get a vibe that no one really wants to do the subcommittee thing anymore. Tell me if I'm wrong.
I don't think that's true. I definitely don't
Okay.
think that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think subcommittees are actually like a very productive way to make progress on things. I guess to me, it feels like you have a subcommittee when you have something that you're digging into. And so like making sort of subcommittees just to have subcommittees doesn't feel as effective to me as like, okay, now we're, trying to tackle this grant or this whatever, like let's get a group together because then you sort of know what your capacity is, who else is, on it. So I guess my recommendation is that we make them a little bit more ad hoc based on what we need. And we know, at this point, we have a sense of what we need in the short term. Buildings is one of them. So I think it's good that we've got members on that one. But I mean,
Yeah,
if admin is what you need, I'm happy to be an admin.
So I do just want to say that like last time and in the calls with Larry, and now I'm saying that there's 3 committees that we could really use help with. Well, and they're not buildings. so and that's because we really need help with those 3 right now, and we can put buildings off for a little while. So it's the governance one because we're updating the ordinance for the first time in like, what, 15 years? It's kind of a big deal, big project. And we were going to be doing the bylaws. So those are two really concrete projects that have been ongoing for over 6 months now that we really need some help with to get over the finish line. And will extend for 6 months after the ordinance is passed. So we're looking at wrapping this up in like the next year. So I'm thinking it could look like, you know, another hour of meetings every month with some emails back and forth for like the next year is what we're talking about with the governance subcommittee. The second one would be the policy committee. And as you can see on the agenda tonight, there's like 3 different policy efforts that Somerville's currently engaged with, and that's just this month. There is something every single month, and that subcommittee was super helpful in the past and would help me like draft things for the council, draft things for the state, and their feedback was like directly reflected into materials that we would submit, speeches that we would make, things that were signed by myself and the mayor. So like super impactful. And then I think the other subcommittee is the outreach committee. And as I think we have, either you guys have already seen or we're going to show you guys later, there's like 30 events that we have this fall, and that's just this fall. And we could really use some help there because outreach is just more fun if there's more than just one person at the table. So, and it's a good way to help, you know, because I think everybody got somewhat, you know, got involved in this commission to like help share the word with your neighbors and things like that. So, you know, those are ones that we really need help with right now. So coming to you with that, if you don't want to participate, it's 100% fine. I'm not going to hold anybody's feet to the fire. But I do think it's that suggestion from Alexis is something that we could think about because, you know, we do want to have commissioners participate in the work that the commission, you know, that the office is working on.
Yeah.
I will hold your feet to the fire because if we grow to 15, like subcommittees are going to have to get work done because a 15-person meeting is difficult to get get work done live. So that's my argument there. Alexis?
I will volunteer for policy. Especially if buildings is taking a pause, right? Or like a more passive role right now.
Yeah, and I'm happy to volunteer for outreach. I think I was the only member from the outreach committee still around.
Yeah, I think Ari was doing outreach as well, and
yeah,
I will hypothesize that she would rejoin that.
I would say the same thing. Yes.
And Julie at one time had volunteered to join administration. I think in April or May. So maybe I will pencil her in for governance. Leaving Ramon.
And Courtney, I don't mean to say that buildings aren't important or anything. It's just trying to prioritize with the things and sort of, you know, interest in commissioners. But I think if we get another person that's interested in buildings and wants to do that with one of the other 3, then like, let's do it. But I think just right now with like the things that we're working on and the capacity that we have between all of the departments working on buildings right now, including, you know, everybody that's involved with the CIP, the capital improvement plan effort that's going on right now. I feel like that stuff will come, but it's not quite right now. And there's overlap with the governance side of things, with the ordinance update and the bylaws update and with the policy efforts, because I think all 3 of the policies have to do with buildings. So there's like, and the outreach is for the rental registry and energy efficiency disclosure piece. So there's a lot of overlap with all of those 3. So for what it's worth, I just at least wanted to like put it out there.
I will move us on to John. I see your hand raised. I'm not sure if it's still raised or if you have a new comment.
It was raised again.
Aha. Excellent.
And the reason I was thinking of 2 things while about your committees, And Commissioner Washburn addressed one, and I fully support. I think she's absolutely right. You should. This is part of the bylaws. That's where it should be. And then Commissioner Johnson covered the other issue. Make them ad hoc. Don't identify them and try to find a reason for them. You've got plenty to do. I'm sure from the city will tell you we need help here, there, etc. And just, I think in the bylaws, you might put a certain number. We can have X number of these committees, and it up to the chair or whatever, however you want to select them, and go from there. But so the commissioners have answered my question, so I'll shut up now.
No, that's helpful. Thank you.
I can lower my hand.
So we hinted that there's a new reappointment policy for the city, and I don't know what it is. So Christine, perhaps you can.
Hey,
chime in.
so you guys should all be getting an email pretty soon from mayor's office. So if you haven't already, it sounds like you haven't yet, but essentially the mayor's office has oh, thank you, Julia.
This is the correct document, right, Christine?
Yes,
Okay.
they address things like term limits, they address things like reappointment processes, they address things like advertising for the positions. So, and this is something that the mayor's office has been working on for years. It's something that when Mayor Valentine was first elected, she was really passionate about. And Hannah Carrillo, who has recently departed her position as legislative liaison, to go work at the state, which is really exciting. But she really spearheaded this effort, and now it's coming to fruition. So there's going to be some trainings for commission members and staff liaisons and ex officios. So that's coming up. But just wanted to at least put out there that this reappointment policy is going to be released soon, and it will have some implications for a lot of the things that we talked about tonight too. And it's coming at a good time that it's getting released and rolled out as we're updating the ordinance. So wanted to give everybody a heads up there.
That's helpful. I guess that you're teasing that we will have term limits potentially. So okay, we will. It's just at the bottom of the screen.
Can the reappointment policy be posted with the meeting materials? Yes, I think that I'll connect with the mayor's office because I know that they're trying to roll it out to commissions. So let me just double check and see how they want to proceed with that. But I will let you know. And this is also why I asked everybody for their addresses too. So if you haven't sent your address in, please send that to me.
Okay, and so I can see this may have some implications that on the ordinance that we may need to Christina, we may need to chat about. So and finally, in the administration conversation, the use of AI for note taking. Where did you land on that? Because we're using it right now.
Yep. I was gonna say this account was designed to be compliant with open meeting law, and we were told that there would be an AI thing happening, and so there are notes that are produced, and we can share them with like the person that is taking notes, but we haven't totally like said that we can just have the AI take notes. So that's kind of an open question. And I'm working with like an internal team that's like trying to navigate the AI stuff. That's the stuff is probably reductive. It's like innovations that are happening right now and how we can use them at the city, how we should use them. So I'll get back to folks on that, but that's an open question that we're trying to figure out right now.
Is the Wilson Otter AI bot the AI that you're talking about, or is that someone else? Okay, got it. Go ahead, Alexis.
Yeah, I was going to say that we might also want to consider what our policy is on members of the general public using AI note takers. So for example, can you have an AI note taker attend on your behalf? Not that they're providing public comment, but they're there, you're not there, or you're both there, for example.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I don't really see how we would police that, or, you know, if we were to have a policy that was like, you can't do that, like, because people could record us. You know, there's like, if you've heard of, oh man, I'm gonna forget, First Amendment audits. Are you familiar with that term? It's where like folks can, you know, they come into like city buildings and will like record you doing your work. So that's something that is like allowed and you know, part of our work on a day-to-day basis. Not that it happens every day, but it can happen anytime. So I feel like it's kind of analogous, even though it's an AI. So for what it's worth, I think it'd be really hard to police something like that, but I can definitely ask about it.
Yeah, it's an interesting question though. Thanks for bringing it up.
Oh, it's a whole new world.
Anything else on administration and governance? All right. We only have a few minutes left, so we're going to switch to policy, and there are a number of things here, and I will defer to you, Christine, on order of priority.
Might just go down the list here. So I think for grant updates, we applied to the USDA. I'm going to forget the actual title of the grant, but it was for the expand the composting pilot. So Julia, do you want to say like a sentence or two about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, we did apply for the I'm also blanking on the name of it because I've just been calling it the composting grant this entire time. So what we did was we applied for the full grant amount of $450,000. And this would significantly be able to increase significantly the amount of households that we can give services to. So with the grant, we'd be able to service approximately 2,500 households in 4 different neighborhoods, being Union Square, Davis Square, East Somerville, and Winter Hill. And then the program would be specifically for community members who are in environmental justice communities or, you know, have certain barriers, and there would be certain requirements like if they are eligible for SNAP or other programs that would determine their eligibility for the program, and it would be fully funded for those individuals. Additionally, we'd be partnering with Mothers Out Front and the Growing Center to help do outreach and also hold composting events for residents to be able to get compost for themselves and for their own garden.
Awesome.
That was the Reader's Digest version.
Thank you. Yeah, and I just want to time check. We have 4 minutes left, so I'm probably not going to be able to get through all of these, but I think that that's the most important grant update. So we'll let you guys know what happens. Thank you, Julia. And then the the 3-year plan has a component in it that would allow the program administrators for the first time to invest in carbon capture and sequestration out of ratepayer funds that are supposed to be for energy efficiency and decarbonization. So I'm going to be planning on joining the next EEAC meeting to voice some concern with that. And hopefully there will be some, you know, pause from the DPU before they, you know, approve the plan. And the goal would hopefully be that they just don't include it this time around. Then for the stretch code talked with the DOER today. Sorry for all the acronyms, the Department of Energy Resources, about their proposed updates for it and why they made certain decisions. And I am feeling a lot better coming away from that conversation with what they had proposed and why. I don't know if what I think that the main takeaway is that they're adjusting some of the numbers and requirements down a little bit in the stretch code so that it can be adopted more broadly, because some communities, 3 of them, have reportedly gone back to the base code because of these changes, and some communities aren't adopting it because of the changes in it. So they're trying to ratchet it down so that it can be more broadly adopted. And while I respect that, I think that's not, we're not seeing those issues in Somerville necessarily. So, we're figuring out how we can respond and provide comment for that in the most effective way. And then our rental registry and energy disclosure ordinance is, we're currently doing the focus groups. And so please sign up for one if you haven't already, or tell your friends and neighbors, specifically anybody that works in, energy audits, or, as a landlord, or, as a renter, or even a senior in Somerville. Like, we would love to hear from folks. Skilled labor, like electricians, things like that. Would love to hear from folks, brokers, real estate agents. And then I can save CCE updates for next time for sure. And then we'll open it up to comments from the commission and then public comment before moving on to the minutes.
Wow, you actually did that in like 3 minutes.
That was extremely impressive, Christine. And then we do have the July minutes ready for review, Christine.
Oh, great.
The August ones we also have. I just have to edit those up a little bit before we review them. So we'll defer those to next month, if that's all right.
Oh, thank you.
I don't think I saw the July minutes.
Oh yeah, did you send them around, Julia?
What's it called? I was able to get them and then I cleaned them up, but I didn't have enough time to get them posted for the meeting.
Okay.
So do we have to do that next month to abide by open meeting law?
Yeah, we should do that next month and hit up all 3.
Okay. And this is my plug for open meeting law for note takers. Please send them the minute. Please send us the minutes.
Yeah.
We are happy to clean them up. Okay.
Any other comments? Any new business? Wow. Okay. Seeing nothing. That was useful. So I have some homework to do. We have some homework to do on the ordinance. And well, we have lots of homework to do, but thank you.
Yeah.
Just a
Thank
quick
you so much.
clarification. So you'll send me the AI transcript, and then I'll work my magic based on what notes I took and it. Is that correct?
Sure. Would you
Okay.
like us to send it to you? We can send you the recording. We can send you the
The
AI.
AI
notes.
transcript would be great. Yeah.
Okay.
Or
perfect.
notes or whatever you want to send.
I can send that
Not-
over to you tomorrow morning.
Great. Perfect. Thanks, Julie. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Okay. Thanks,
All
guys.
right.
Bye.
Thank y'all.
Take care.
Efficient. Bye, Christine.